G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our sponsors, supshq.com.au. Use BWB15 at checkout to receive 15% off and direct shipping.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Bros with Brains. Here with my boy Benny. It looks like it's a bit cold in Queensland. He's got full flannelette, hoodie, jumper, trackies on. Friggin' sunny here in Melbourne.
Bro science, sweat equals fat loss.
Mate, it's 16, 17 degrees. It's 20 to 11 in the morning. Life couldn't be any better. How we going?
I'm going right. Going good, actually. I've taken a full hit of Madaf this morning, so
we are
flying, having a great day. Got training out of the way early, cardio done. I've got a pretty busy day actually, so trying to save and conserve energy and wait for food and stuff until later on. So I haven't really eaten yet, which is going to be interesting. So I've got some fat burner and HTP in here, so that's always handy for me. Bit of energy and cognitive function.
All the stimulants.
Yeah. But no, overall, things are really good. As of this week, I will officially have trumped my stage, I want to say stage condition. However, I was obviously more depleted on stage because we went through very heavy depletion phases and I had less glycogen and water in my muscles. So I want to say overall calipers, body fat.
Yeah.
I will have trumped my stage body fat numbers and we're still 5.5 weeks out. So pretty happy there. So no matter what, like my goal was always to be 100% improved from where I was. For anyone who are stats men, I like my stats and my numbers. Obviously, numbers don't always tell the full story, but they give us qualitative information. I was on stage at 81.6 kilos at 30 millimeters over 9 sites, which was not lean. Lean, like, okay, relative on stage, not lean. Novice, it was pretty lean. I was very competitive. Still had watery spots, but competitive for a pro card, no any lean. So that was 30 mils over 9 sites at 81 kilos, with what 1,200 calories I think we had to push down to. Like, it was horrible. Overall it was a bad time. It got done. Me and Dot pushed it 100%. There's nothing left to give. What were the other stats? I think so at current rate of loss, I'm sitting as of Monday's measurements, check-ins, I was 33. My rate of loss at current is 2.5 on average. So projecting in that mark at this week is definitely tightened up even more. Like I feel like I look tenfold better already day by day. So at the current rate of loss, I end up leaner at 5.5 weeks out, on double the calories I was on at the last stage. 10 kilos heavier and 5.5 weeks left to go before the first show. So overall, that's a win to me. Plenty of tweaks and stuff to do. I'm still working on my routine and posing, and we'll always be doing that now. It's literally every day, 2 to 3 times a day, steps into the city. It's just at this point, it was a very hard pill to swallow for me to be accepting of lack of productivity. But it got to a point where I was like, the next 6 weeks to give everything I have to then project that into the business afterwards. And I just keep that same level of proficiency. It's just taken from prep to business. 6 weeks for me to focus on myself. And then after that, it's 2 years of focusing on the business and study. So for someone who doesn't like the term backing off and balance and all sort of shit, it's one of those things where for this next 6 weeks, this has to be the focus. All clients are obviously getting 100% of my effort that I can give them. But yeah, it was definitely all right, you just kind of have to back off the expectations of what's going to be done.
Yes. Settle the fuck down.
Yeah. So,
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. At this point, literally, like my masseuse, my physios and stuff, everyone's just like the fluid you need to get rid of is just from stress. Like, it's just from output and stuff and intensity. It's like I do everything full pelt where I can. And that's, I guess, the difference that will separate me again to being an advanced athlete when the time comes, is that knowing when to push and when to pull and have that internal capacity and knowing that it's not just being lazy. Like, a lazy to me obviously is self-inflicted versus when I see someone who's actually lazy. Lazy to me is like doing 1 or 2 less productive items a day versus, and the list is 20 long versus someone who does fucking nothing. So yeah, it's at that point where I think, I don't know, you probably agree, but it's mostly because the business in full service is so new that I don't want to feel like I'm taking away from that to give to myself. Like it feels a little bit selfish, but it is
Yeah,
obviously a selfish
but
endeavor.
well, yeah, that's the balance you need to find, and this is why I always find it interesting that those that run like an online, I guess, or not even online, just run a coaching, I guess, business where your objective is to help others, then have to do something that's like, yeah, like selfish
Yeah,
in a way. It's always an interesting, like it's almost like an oxymoron, right? It's like
yeah,
you got to be giving, yet
yeah,
you have to be selfish all at the same time. And it's like
yeah,
the thing is that the difference, I think, obviously with like a powerlifting versus a bodybuilding. Like bodybuilding, you are draining your energy input.
yes,
So it's like you can only put out, you can only get out what you put in. Good old
yeah.
Nutri-Grain, can't go wrong. Um, but it's
That
like,
rules.
yeah, like but with like powerlifting and stuff, and I guess strongman and stuff. Unless you're dieting heavy because you're,
Yeah,
so far outside your weight cap, which you shouldn't be.
shouldn't be.
Um, you're usually relatively energy abundant. It's just you
Yeah,
tend to feel
she'll
quite
feel
drained from
yeah,
just
sweating
the
out.
lifting. Yeah, just the lifting and leading
Yeah,
into comp. So it's a very different feel, and that's why I always find it interesting. Those that are able to coach to that extent. And I remember I was speaking to Kuba um, about it, and he's like, man, when he leads into comp prep and when he's prepping, he's just like, I work better
yeah,
because he only has that focus. Like
yeah,
clients train,
yes,
clients train. Whereas when he's more full of energy, it's like business, clients
yeah,
train,
yeah,
this, that, socials, blah blah
yeah.
blah. Like everything else dies down.
And I think that I think I've had that realization where like I'm constantly reflecting now with the team, the guys, girls, everyone that's starting up and things like that is like, you know, uh, my plan is to make sure that like it's it. I guess more so accepting that the productivity of like extra content and extra stuff that we usually do is just slowed down. The productivity of client programming and check-ins and interaction stuff like that is through the roof. This week is actually hectic with business. It's just more so like the like you said, similar to Cuba, that does become you become so proficient at only like two or three things because that's all you get to do. You're just so lacking of energy. So it's just more so for me, I guess the extra stuff that I love doing, like the ebook coming out today. I've got to proofread, but very simple. Like it was to me a bread and butter concept, and it was super easy. And I realized a lot of people weren't having the conversations of like what actually goes into a cut and what may help you get through the cut, especially for coaches that don't do meal plans and things like that, where a client doesn't really know to flavor food a certain way or increase volume of certain foods. Like it, those few little tricks that make the whole process easier, we just don't naturally inherently know. So to me, I was like, well, this is a piece of piss. It's not like secrets or locked behind a key or anything. So I'll just write it. And Brooklyn just had to proofread it because, well, brain capacity. But
So
like
you
to me,
can't
like
spell at the best of times.
yeah, exactly right. To you are all
It's like
letters, not
which there are we using?
yeah. But yeah, so like that stuff, like that was easy, but at the same time, it's a bit of a one-off at the moment. So it was just don't let the website die down during prep. We've still got blogs and articles coming out, but it's like that's just going to be a less focal point. Clients obviously 100% is the what energy do I have is to give to the people I already have, take care of them, make sure they're looked after, and obviously we're a service business, so I'm constantly reflecting on like, hey, have I missed anything? What do you guys need from me? What am I lacking? So yeah, that side of things definitely driven up. Like that's definitely on the productive side. So yeah, overall, it's just more so the decrease in the extra variables like the course content and stuff has just slowed down. Obviously, that's just going to happen. Reviewing it and stuff like that, going through like the lookovers and having feedback and that sort of stuff has been good. But it's just like making changes or finishing off is just slowed down. So
Yeah,
overall, like it's expected, and it's only 6 weeks away, man. Like it's literally 3 years of work coming up to 6 weeks,
yeah,
and
exactly right.
it's feeling like this is the best position I've ever been in.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a lot of driving left to do, as we're talking about before the call, and there's things I'm willing to do. There's things I'm obviously turning to you for because I will get in my own head and just do extra for the sake of being an
Yeah,
idiot.
that's when I got to tell you no.
Um,
Slap your
but
hand like a little
yeah,
kid. No.
stop it. But yeah, like it's a culmination. I think it's gonna be. I'm actually more excited to see Tom up there because I'm so confident in what his physique actually looks like.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think we're filling him up is down to like 95. He had a bit of a crook gut. I'm at the point of giving him free meals on top of food, with limitations, obviously. But just to tick over satiety, give him some like reduced stress, reduce any fatigue. He sticks to his diet to a T during the week. It's like fuck, you've earned some extra carbs and a free meal. And he just looks ridiculous at 6 weeks out. So to know his weight cap still has like 8 kilos to go blows my mind at how good he's going to look already. And we just have to peak him properly and fill him up, make sure he looks round, and he'll fucking kill it. So I'm more excited as a coach, I guess, for his show than I am my own. And we've both been doing it for we've both been working towards the same goal for 3 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's going to be a very good showing, I think, which would be fun. We just got to get through the next few weeks and keep on top of everything and sort it out.
I think this is the one. This is the one that sets the pace for me of what's the word? Can I do this long term kind of thing? Like this is the first one where it's like, and the last one, like it tickled my fancy, it scratched my itch, and I was like, I'm doing this. But after 2 cancelled preps because of COVID, I think it's actually been a blessing given the extra growth blocks and the size I put on. I thought I'd come in high 80s, but I didn't realize how close to the cap I'm actually going to have to be to where I am. Like, there's not much more room for me there's room to add size, of course, but like I had an extra few kilos to my legs. I'm not getting back under 90s ever again. So what's the point of trying? Like, fucking, we drive to under 100s after this. So yeah,
the fun. That's when the fun begins.
Exactly right. The excitement I have for like looking back at photos and stuff and just reflecting on the 3 years and what I did as soon as I got off stage last time was like the work we did and the work we managed to do. And 2 of those years were in the presence of COVID. Was like, as I said to you, well, fuck, what can we do in 5 years with no COVID? Obviously, there's never not going to be interruptions in growth phases and preps, but I mean, of course, the likelihood of that sort of consequence happening again in the space of a 5-year time frame is pretty low.
Yeah, so, exactly.
That capacity or potential for what's to come is like fucking exciting.
I
actually know what we do.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be interesting to see how we go. But I'll be up there for both shows, so this should be fun. I
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Someone's got to slap you around a little bit.
We can spoon.
Yeah, we can do that too. I was just gonna.
That's got nothing to do with prep. We can just spoon.
No, that's just usual. But
how are you though? How is having some
good.
time off?
Oh man, hey,
stepping back.
Yeah, it's like what time off? I've been flat chat, bro.
I'm good.
Trying to organize everything and just having got so much shit to pop up in the next like 3 months. Like every weekend, I've got something. It's really frustrating because me, I don't like doing anything. So
you're right.
Like it's bad, bro. I'm in Sydney this weekend for comp. I'm moving house. Finally, found a new place. So moving house probably the following weekend, and then so that's 1 week from when this episode drops, and then I've got another comp at the end of the month, and then in October I've got your comp both at the 2 weekends in October, and then November it's like I'm going away, and then I've got my birthday in there. Like then I've got like a cousin's birthday, family shit, or like a wedding coming up for a cousin.
That'd actually be a good time to link up work trip birthday. Come down for that. We got a feed, actually have some food.
Sure, let's do that. But you know what I mean? Like with so much shit. Oh yeah, I got Broderick's seminar at the start.
Oh yeah, Brod's, yeah.
That group chat's going off. Like, oh man, anyway, it's gonna be hectic, but we'll see how we go. Hopefully it goes fast.
Hey, fucking Brooklyn, I didn't realize that. Well, I did realize it was kind of clicked in my head. I spoke to the organizer of the expo we're working in post comp. I was like, oh, have you got anything in particular you want me to talk about or focus on for the young women and stuff, the girls and ladies that are coming through? She's like, oh no, I'll leave that up to you. I'm like, I don't have a think capacity right now. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. But I was like I've got
Brooklyn's not the girl to ask either about anything.
I sent the list of things that I'm versed on and can talk about and I'm educated in, and she's like, that all sounds great. I was like, I'm not doing all of them. I was like,
pick one.
Which one are we like? What suits the agenda? And she's like, I'm like, is anyone else talking on any of these topics? She's like, nope, literally no one. I was like, I mean, that's cool, but also like
that's shit. Yeah, now you have decision fatigue. Yeah, decision fatigue.
Yeah, give me that. And then like straight after that, Brooklyn's like, oh yeah, what'd she do? She booked. She set the date for the stress seminar that we're going to do as the 29th of
I remember you were saying
October. Yeah. I was like
nope. surely that was a joke. Surely you pull them out again.
Oh, okay, so we'll do it in November and set to like the week after that one. I was like,
I mean, it's better.
I was like, you're better. I mean,
at least you'll have some food.
It keeps me on that productivity focus. Like one of the things that I noticed last comp, like really was the once you get dialed in, you're doing all those tasks and everything's ticking over. The second you stop, you start feeling lazy. So I'm like, it'll be good to have things to aim towards post show to keep productivity up. But I was like, fuck. Like, what else can we add to the list?
Well, yeah, it's like at least it'll give you something to focus on post show and take you away from like, the whole feeling
Procrastination.
hungry and all that sort of shit.
Yes.
Um,
But right, what are we ripping on today?
Look, it's not a rip. All right. We gotta, I guess,
Yes.
we gotta, preface this because it's a touchy subject and I can understand. Don't get me wrong. Now, for like a preface, pre-context, I want to talk about the adult version of ADHD. Okay. And the only reason why I want to talk about it is because on social media, a lot of
Mhm.
people are now they're being diagnosed, obviously not on social media, but they're
Mhm.
being diagnosed by their doctors and whatever. And
Mhm.
then it's almost like they're using it as an excuse or that's not even a reason. It looks like an excuse from what I see on social media. Okay.
Mhm.
So remember when like the whole joke about star signs was like, oh, like, Saturn's in retrograde, so I'm being a bitch. It's like
Yeah.
people are like, I haven't been able to do this and I haven't been able to do that. And it's because of now being diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm not saying that that's not the case. There's a very
Mhm.
real, like, plausible thing that that's the case.
Mhm.
But how far do we let that go?
Yeah.
So the first thing a lot of people will claim that, or not will claim, and it's mixed context because ADHD is technically a neurological disorder.
Mhm.
It's not a mental health disorder.
Mhm.
So it's a funny one because most people think it's mental health, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. I can understand why people would think it. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong, right? Like it can be confusing when we come to mental health, but like
Yeah.
we know that mental health is like emotional, psychological, and
Mhm.
social.
Mhm.
Like neurological doesn't really fall into that banner. Like
Mhm.
it's a funny one. So it's like trying to blame your social, I guess your social inability, maybe,
Mhm.
which again, I can understand. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. So
Like, I get it. It's just a touch. I know it's a touchy subject, and I'm not saying that people don't actually have it. I'm
yes.
just simply saying
Yeah.
that maybe you can't fall back on it as much as you'd like. Maybe
Yes.
some of it is just to do with you as a person, and maybe you're just an idiot
Yes.
sometimes. Hey, like we all do it.
There's the linkage I would say between the correlation between how it becomes classed as mental health related is the emotional or the psychological strains that come with having it being
Yes.
like when you're introspective and you're conscious or cognizant of the fact that you have it and you're aware that you may be socially inept or you may be socially different or function a little bit differently depending
Yeah.
on the degree of your susceptibility to it.
Yeah.
That can bring struggle, trauma, all that sort of stuff to it
Definitely,
because you're like,
but
hey, I can't interact with people. However,
that's not
that's
ADHD.
that's what ADHD.
Yeah, that's
That's
not
the
ADHD.
associative problems that come with it emotionally and
Thank you.
psychologically.
Yes.
That is
This is
what
like
comes
RP
with
and RIR all over again.
yes. It's like this is why we look at correlation versus causation, and this is how we have variables and things like that are associated to or we have things like Pearson's correlation coefficient. We
Mhm.
look at the likelihood of how much this variable actually dictates or affects that
Yes,
result.
exactly.
So if we're looking at that particular thing and saying, oh, I've got ADHD and therefore I can't do XYZ and I've got these problems, yada yada. No, those things they're not mutually exclusive, but they're not mutually connected.
Yes.
It's not an entwined relationship per se. You could have mental health issues and have ADHD and be completely separate, or you could have ADHD and have not have mental health issues. You could have mental health issues and not have ADHD.
Exactly.
They're not the same diagnosis. They're not always related, but they are interrelatable when it comes to people having them. But I think the problem lies in, and this goes beyond even just that diagnosis, but people in general these days often look for a crux to justify or validate poor choices, poor behaviors, inactivity, less productivity, poor business choices, poor study choices. There is, as everything in psychology that we know, there is a spectrum. There is a spectrum to the degree of which you have ADHD or Asperger's or this diagnosis or this, MS or this or that. Those things exist on a spectrum. Like you can have it, like we all to a degree have some form of that, but
Right.
it exists on a spectrum.
Mhm.
Like the likelihood of, like, even when we look at things like people are like, I'm an introvert and I'm an extrovert. Well, actually, in certain contexts, you are. In certain
Yeah,
scenarios, you're not.
sometimes you're not exactly.
It exists on a spectrum. Now, to the degree that I know I have several clients and I completely respect them for the work ethic they've had and done when they've had it. There was, I have a client, I won't use any names because it's very personal, but was lied to, or sorry, mistold to by many doctors that it didn't happen, and he couldn't understand why things were happening to him the way it was. And he was a very productive guy. Like, he's very proficient in his job, loves his training, wants to progress in training, but couldn't get life sorted, and everything would just overwhelm him. You get these responses, and that would lead to the emotional anguish and the frustrations and the disappointments, because it's like, well, I can't do these things. I can't hold relationships. I can't talk to people. I can't go out, plan my life, have
And
these
not
schedules,
knowing why.
and not knowing why, when you're
Yes,
saying, I think
I
it's
think it's
this.
this.
And unfortunately, too, we know one of
Yes.
the biggest problems we know is that and this is the thing that pisses me off when I see people like brag about on social media,
Thank you.
is self-diagnosis is
Oh yeah.
often misconstrued, or if you
Mm-hmm.
take that like that, oh, go do the ADHD test. We have what's called the research appreciation bias, which is you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to please a researcher,
By
pose questions,
and
they're
answering the
loaded
way you want
questions,
it
and you
to be
answer them the
answered.
way you want to, because you
Like a,
know, if
yeah,
I know that I'm distracted, so yeah, I'm very
yeah,
distracted. I know
exactly.
that I'm this, so I'm very this.
Yeah.
That gives you the answer that you want, and all of a sudden you've correlated that score. It's like, well, if you have over 75 out of 100, you've got 8. And it's like, no, we have a very strict screening process,
Yeah.
and spend a lot of time studying
Yes.
childhood through to adult
Mm-hmm.
ADHD and like neurological disorders of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
and we understand why it actually happens. So it's not like that self-diagnosis shit is like, firstly, it's insulting to people who really do struggle with it,
Exactly.
and it's used as like a, almost like a brag, or like like you said, pass the buck. Like, there's a very big difference between social media
Yep.
ADHD and actually diagnosed clinical ADHD.
Yes.
And my client, when he actually got that diagnosis, was able to look at life a whole lot fucking differently, because
Well,
finally had answers.
yes.
To him, it wasn't a crux or a lie or like an excuse for behavior or anything
It
like that.
was an answer.
It was an answer. And even in that, he was like, I know I have this, however, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to say it. I never saw him on socials being like, fucking, because of this, I can't do this, because of this, yeah,
Yeah, exactly right.
woe is me. He was actually more, he would often share, like, he's very involved in mental health,
Mm-hmm.
role modeling to juniors and stuff like that. So he was very caring in that regard and empathetic. Um, Before he even had the diagnosis, he was actually more concerned with other people. He just
Mm-hmm.
wanted his clarity to know how to fix it and he could move on in life, which
Yes.
is exactly what you want.
Yes.
Now, to use it as a brag, it's like, you're never going to walk around and be like, oh, I basically have cancer, I'm so exhausted. Like, you
Right,
don't
and
do it. Like,
that's
what the
exactly
fuck?
that's exactly right, and that's like when people they'll go and Google their symptoms, and they're like, "Well, it always
Yeah,
leads to cancer. Everyone has
yeah.
cancer if that's the case." You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
and again, I'm not saying that it's not a true thing or anything like that, because 100% it is. And for those that are listening, just as pre-context, as much as I do not like to divulge personal information, I've been diagnosed with autism.
Mhm.
I actually have Asperger's.
Yeah.
It's why when it comes to social situations, and for anyone that's listening that's ever seen me in a social setting, you see me in the corner by myself, not talking to
Mhm.
anyone. Part of the reason why, like I do, it's not that I when I joke, it's not I don't like people. It's
Yeah.
just I am hardwired in a sense to just be okay in my corner, leave me alone, don't talk to
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
it's like I work in the job that I work because at the time that I started working, I didn't know I had it.
Yeah.
I knew there was something wrong, and I knew
Mhm.
that I had a genuine problem being in big crowds or even
Yep.
small crowds and things like that. So for me to get out of that, I chose to become a coach, a PT.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I'll work in PT and get myself out of that hole,
Yeah.
not understanding that maybe the reason for it was a bit deeper than
Yes.
just what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like I got diagnosed with that at like 24,
Mhm.
24, 25. And apparently at the time it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know it is what it is. Right. And it's
Yep.
like definitely not saying that any of this isn't a thing, but it's the fallback. Like again, your
Yes.
example of your client, I'm assuming your client doesn't walk around on social media posting that he has
Nope.
or she has this thing.
Even now
I
with it.
Yeah, I don't go posting on social media that I have
Yes.
autism and that all the memes, don't get me wrong, some jokes about these things, like, yeah, they're funny. Like, I can
Yes.
understand about it, but it's like,
Yes.
you don't need to post about it every day. Like, we get it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it's almost a cry for attention, it looks like, or it
Yeah.
seems. And it's kind of like, well, that's not what mental, like, health, neurological health disorders are about.
No,
Like,
they're not. Yeah, they're not a crux or a scapegoat
no,
or a
if you want to,
jail
like, if you
card for
want to post
behavior.
about it and you want, you know, people to ask you how you are or something like that, I mean, maybe there's something there that you need to sort of look at. But
Yes.
falling back on it,
Yeah, and thing is too, like I know like the people that I know and have researched and read up on, there are a multitude of elite athletes that have actually referred to their ADHD diagnosis as a power, like a superpower. Michael Phelps referred to it as a tool.
Yeah,
He is a diagnosed adult ADHD. Well, sorry, has been diagnosed as an adult ADHD sufferer.
yeah,
He literally referred to it as the reason he won 7 gold medals in one
yeah,
Olympics.
exactly right.
Like in using it to your advantage, we know that we know certain medications and stuff, it can be a fucking power enhancer with the productivity that you have should you find focus in things. But to use it like there's also the person who like let's say you have a 1% diagnosis of it and you're on the spectrum of like far left in
Yeah,
the 1 percentile of diagnosis.
yeah,
Using that as a justification for being lazy or bored or not having interest, like there's a big difference between being distracted, not interested in a topic or content, and not actually having attention disorders.
yeah,
Mum said to me, because I brought up a few things about the way that I interact and the way I am with people and like the way my anxiety goes and things like that in large crowds. The way that I can hyper fixate and become obsessive on like very few topics, but when I get in on it, I'll go like 3 or 4 hours down a rabbit hole and then
yeah,
realize like, oh fuck,
yeah,
supposed to have done
yeah,
this.
yeah. Whoops.
But then I won't want to touch other stuff. Like I have, 4 or 5 projects at a time that I have to keep running
Yeah,
because I get this like this attentional depreciation of actually finishing it off.
yeah,
And I was like, yeah, I noticed all these things. Now I'm not going around saying I have anything. However, she said to me, yeah, we were told to get you tested back in the day, but me and your father weren't big proponents of medication.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that's cool news to have.
Yeah. Like,
Should
thanks.
I get it looked at? I don't know.
Yeah,
At the same time, the way it works for me at the moment, if that is the case, it fucking helps. I've got like 4 or 5 things going at once that I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, they could all be finished.
Well, it helps you
But
understand, right?
yeah, it's just
Yeah,
like, okay, cool, that is potential. Like, I'm not going
yeah,
to go around being like, oh, I didn't get this done because of this today.
yeah,
Like, that's not how it works. So, we can fall back on a broken leg or a broken arm and be like, oh, I didn't go to the gym because I got a broken arm.
yeah,
But even then, we still know there's people that go to the gym with a broken arm. It's
yeah.
something to do.
And it's
To fall back on your self-diagnosed disorder that isn't proven by anyone yet, and
yeah,
you're just simply saying, and don't get me wrong, there is, like I said, the client of mine who genuinely had like I know of the research that I knew and the way we worked and the way things he expressed. I'm like, we need to get a second opinion. You need to go
yeah,
talk to another person. Went back, got it. He's like, yeah, actually, this is what the doc said. I'm like, cool. Taken 20 odd years or whatever to
yeah,
get that position, but it gives him clarity for the future and where to
yeah.
go.
And
His life now can expand. But he wasn't always walking around being like, oh, I had a shit day at work today because of XYZ. I got in trouble with my boss today because she doesn't understand XYZ.
yeah,
That's not how it works.
no, and we know that obviously as the research gets better and as more money's put into this stuff, things are going to be coming out that are better and better for us to discover. And that's
100%.
probably why we're getting much more diagnosis of adults having it and stuff like that. Because obviously, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have as much research on it. We didn't.
Yeah.
It was still
You have
really
to
new.
understand,
It still is really
psychology as
new.
a science has only existed for 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's still such a
And before, like,
baby.
as that was actually also just like the start of psychiatry.
Yeah,
If we go back to like the late 1800s into the early 1900s, you had like the school of philosophies that expressed
yeah,
mental thought, but you start looking at like Jung and Freud, who started to talk about analytical psychology
yeah.
and clinical psychology in that degree, which changed the way we started projecting on it and
Oh,
looking at isolating the studies. But as an actual, almost in comparison, say chemistry or mathematics or physics, those are thousands of years old
yeah,
with credentials from people going back to fucking Socrates and Aristotle. And it's like, yeah,
yeah.
cool. We
And
have psychological data from 1920
yeah,
tops.
and it was like what 50, 60 years ago, they were still zapping people's brains to try and get
They
rid of
were
like
still performing
schizophrenia and
fucking
shit.
lobotomies like
Yeah, like
in the
for
60s.
yeah, like 50 years ago. So it's like 60 years ago. So it's kind of like, and again, like, I'm all for being liberated with a diagnosis. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm all for it. I can relate. I get it.
100%.
But at the same time, I don't know. I feel funny about people posting it all the time on
Yes.
Instagram. Now, I'm not saying the once off post here, the once off post there. It's a
Yes.
joke. I get it. That's funny.
Yeah.
But like every day you need to post that you couldn't do something or this is the reason why. Like,
Yeah.
do we need to know that as
I'm
a
like,
cohort? Like, do we care?
I don't validate the excuse or exemption from action or behavior. If I've seen people that come from worse positions than you with similar or worse diagnoses because, as I said, they exist on a spectrum. So I'm not saying that your diagnosis is invalid or your self-diagnosis doesn't exist, because there are obviously people that are left undiagnosed or treated. But if I've seen people clinically with worse diagnosis than you and ended up in better positions than you, it almost dismisses your excuse for lack of behavior, or sorry, lack of action or progression, or like using it as a tool, or
Yeah.
at least taking the time to. It's like why we track variables.
Yeah.
It might not be the variable, might not be the thing, but what can we track that you can do? Like when I recognize my distractions, I have what's called a procrastination list. I'll look at the things that, okay, if I'm going to be distracted or procrastinated, like if I'm on the toilet and like my gut's feeling off, and I know, like especially in prep, this is gonna be a half-hour trip.
Yeah.
I've got things on my Instagram account, like I need to update my highlight reels, I need to update XYZ, I need to reply to content, I need to do like that stuff. I'm like, cool, if I'm going to be procrastinating, at least make it productive procrastination.
Yeah, like
Because
make
I
it benefit you.
exactly right. Like
Yeah.
turn that into something that it can be used, because I recognize the likelihood of me doing 8 hours straight of work, fucking impossible.
Yeah.
But me scattering my work list in terms of like what I'm required to do, what I need to do, what has to get done. Can I do 2 hours of this? Can I do an hour of that? How can I get like this 30-minute steps in?
Yeah.
All that shit. Like it's looking at what I have, who I am, and where I am, and being like, how can I make it work for me?
Yeah.
And there's friends, followers, and other coaches that are close to me that have actual diagnoses of these things.
Yes, exactly.
They have gone on to create very successful businesses.
Yeah. Well,
and very successful clients.
Yeah, they're the ones that I have in mind when these other people, and again, I'm sure, properly diagnosed, but then go the other way with it and, promote, like, not promote, but basically use it as a crux in a sense. And it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, every now and then you're going to have a tough time. I get it. You're going to go through tough periods of life. I get it. Trust me, I understand. Like,
empathize.
However,
yeah.
Like the dad, two sons, the drunk dad, the two sons. Which way do you want to go? It always comes back to something like that. Like, which way do you want to tackle it?
Yeah.
And in fairness, I think if you have something like ADHD and it's severe, you're going to be medicated. So if you're going to be medicated, you're probably not going to be in that position where you feel like you're hopeless or everything's going to be faulted on your condition. Now, if you're not medicated, it means it's not that severe. It also then means that you don't really have a fallback.
Well, I'll disagree there slightly.
Well, I mean, depending
on I want to, like, again, to expand on that. The only reason I disagree is that said client was because of a prior history, was honest with his his therapist or practitioner or doctor, a use of like medical MJ. They denied access to Ritalin. No, not Ritalin. Whatever. The
ADHD. Yeah, he's Ritalin.
ADHD. Yeah, one of them. Denied access to that for the first period of time, because like, there's you display signs of addictive behaviors, and we know how addiction works. That's not true. Like,
of course,
a bit of MJ. That's not. But his, like, the diagnosis was given 100%. Yep, you have it, a pretty severe case. However, even though we know this will improve your life, you once did, had a joint to chill out and calm your mind, which was to treat the thing that we didn't want to treat you for. And because of that, and you've admitted to that, we're going to delay you using this until you prove you don't use it. And I was like, that's fucked.
Yeah, don't disagree with that. However, that's still in place, that they will still want to give him something at the right time.
Correct. Yes.
So, again, severe enough to be medicated.
Correct. Yes.
So choosing to take them, I guess he doesn't really have a choice. But in the case of choosing to have medication or not, if you have been recommended a medication or you're on the path of being medicated for something like that, it's a very different story to saying, hey, you've got a mild case of this. And it's not just ADHD. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Take Asperger's. It could be a mild case of Asperger's.
Yeah.
You can't then blame the mild case of Asperger's, because guess what? It's fucking mild. Like,
and I hate the social projection that it makes you somewhat better, or like, it's almost a virtue to have it or try and claim
right. That's the other thing. Like,
I find it insulting.
It's almost like people think it's cool. Like,
like it's the new trend word to be like, because again, I know highly functioning sufferers of it, and don't get me wrong, I make cancer jokes all the time. My dad died of cancer. I make those jokes. So when I make jokes about illnesses or things, like, it's because I find dark humor fucked up and funny. That's not me disagreeing with you or saying that you don't have it, or like, you're a problem, or you're full of shit. I find humor in things that most people don't. Literally the day dad passed away at his wake, the week later at his wake, I was using dead dad jokes to make people go buy me a beer.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you gotta make a widowing son have to go get his own beer on his father's wake. And the people just be like, oh man, I feel fucking terrible.
Yeah, exactly
I'm sitting
right.
there like,
Yeah,
like
like that.
I'm that way
Exactly.
inclined. It's funny to me.
That's you
But
as a person. That's fair.
exactly. And that to a degree to me, like if you're using it as a bit of humor, fantastic. Go ham. Like take the piss out of yourself, but also take the piss out of other people. But if you're kind of using it as like like I'll never use it and be like, life is harder for me because I lost my dad and this and that, and like, fucking give me everything and I can't do this because I'm suffering from some grief today. It's like, yeah, okay. But I was also practice a lot of philosophies and a lot of techniques and tools to help me accept, deal, progress, and move forward in life because I'm not going to be hung down by something that happened 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, does that action 4 years ago dictate the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Same way. Let's say you do have it, which the likelihood is you probably don't, based on how much we know people get actually diagnosed.
Yeah.
If everyone on social media that had that psychological disorder actually had it, we'd all be fucked. They don't.
Yeah, it's true.
So, to use it then to try and brag, like, or like, oh, hashtag this is me, or hashtag life, because you've seen like a meme post about like attention deficit disorder or hyper disorder. It's like, no. You are just either like there's a large percentage chance, high percentile chance that you are just like validating laziness, procrastination, being not interested, being bored, struggling to find a goal to make you connect to the thing you're trying to do. Like, don't get me wrong, I fucking suck at study. I had to find a way when I was studying neuroanatomy. I would map it out in my head like a football player because I spent 20 years playing footy. The only way for me to understand the connection of the cortexes and the pathways and the neurons that interacted. And now I can tell you literally play by play how to get from the ear to the auditory cortex. The only way I could do that was, okay, this play here is the halfback, this guy's the hooker, this is where the fullback would run, and this is what and like I would make it relative to me. Subjective learning. If I went by the old tactic of or technical learning style, just read the notebook, take the notes,
take the notes, and
I'd fail everything. I'm sitting on 5.5s as a GPA because I found a way to make it appeal to me beyond my boredom or not interest.
Yeah,
I did social. What was it called? I may as well call it social justice, or social psychology. One of the worst subjects I've ever done. I had zero interest in that subject outside of the cool actual studies that were from like the 1960s.
Yeah,
current social psychology is a joke.
Yeah,
I did that. Still got fives.
Yeah,
has zero interest in most of the content, but to pass it and know that the goal was bigger than what I was trying to do, I could have sat there and been like, oh, I've got a lack of interest, therefore an attention disorder.
Yeah,
This doesn't interest me at all. I better not pay attention. No, fuck that. Like, this is the means to an end to my goal that I'm trying to achieve. I have to pass it and get this grade. Cool, done. That's just how it is. But to try and like, validate it or be like, oh, I struggled on this really hard subject and I just couldn't quite get it because I have this. Like, no, man. Like, you don't just walk around and be like, I've got AIDS or I've got fucking herpes or gonorrhea or this. Like, you don't just walk around and say those things as if it's a brag.
Right. That's I think that's it's like it's almost like the in thing.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, I don't know, it's weird. And again, for everybody listening, not having a go at people with ADHD for the last fucking time. It's not the case.
Not.
I am
as what I study, empathize with it completely.
Yeah, exactly.
An important thing to understand is ADHD is associated to the dopamine receptors and dopamine itself.
Yes.
It is not an emotional response. It's a chemical response in neuroanatomy.
Yes.
Overproductivity or overproduction of dopamine that leads to an excess of dopamine in the blood and the brain. The body is then stimulated and excitatory based on the excess amount of dopamine. The body's inability to absorb that dopamine.
Exactly, and clear it.
Neurons to absorb the dopamine. I believe it's a D2 receptor.
It is.
can't take up those neurotransmitters. Dopamine, we know, is an excitatory neuron, fucking neurotransmitter that we want. However, in that abundance, we struggle to then concentrate, focus on one thing because they're so excited, everything's going on.
Yeah, you literally become overstimulated.
Actual chemical imbalance. It's like when we look at depression. Depression isn't just mental health; it's neurological, especially if you have chemically related induced depression.
And the other medication you were thinking of was Adderall.
Adderall, that's the one.
That's the one. But yes. Anyway, I just thought, touchy subject. I know, but I'm not. I don't think anyone that knows us obviously knows we're not trying to put it down in the wrong way. It's more so for those that genuinely do have it.
The term I think that, and I was going to rip on it, but you kind of didn't because we talked about the actual subject itself. But the people that use this often refer to it as neurodivergency.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the most frustrating. Firstly, it's on par with people who use the Myers-Briggs personality.
Yeah. That
It's
thing's
not
still,
valid
yeah.
by anyone. If you use the term neurodivergency, or like we need to consider, like, I know in corporate psychology they're trying to push it, or like corporate social sciences they're trying to push it to validate people who think or work differently, and we've got to be conscious of the neurodivergence. No, no,
It's
we
not
don't.
not how it
I
works.
understand that there are sciences still coming out and things like that, but literally no one has validated the science or claim or diagnoses of neurodivergency. The implication that neurodivergence are people whose brains seem to function differently to normal people. Everyone's does that. What do you
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
Not one person's brain is the same. Every experience, growth, stimulation, excitatory pathway, every neuron that you've developed, every motor connection you've formed, every functional part of your brain has been based on the experiences of your life, mixed with obviously your evolution, genetic growth, things like that. We have a baseline structure that's similar. However, my neuron pathways that are proficient at movement and lift and thinking on certain things, memory recall, excitatory pathways, things that get me interested, are very different to the next person, to the person next to me, to the person next to them. So, yes, if you're in, I don't know, let's say you're in accounting or you're in marketing and you're someone who's more interested in being outdoors and playing sport, you're not neurodivergent. You're just not interested in what you do.
Exactly right. You just have a short attention span, buddy.
Yeah, literally. Like you're not interested in the content or the concept, so therefore you're just like interested elsewhere.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, hey, we've got to be conscious of you and give you a little extra treatment and make sure that you're okay in the corporate world too. Get a different job that you like. Like bending the knee to a concept that doesn't actually exist frustrates the shit out of me.
Yeah. Obviously, it's an interesting and a touchy subject, but
neurodivergency is, and I don't give a fuck. Like that one, you can suck it absolutely that one. You're not
oh yeah,
neurodivergent.
yeah, I was meaning the other one. It's like yeah, yeah,
ADHD, 100%.
100%.
Very different conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move into questions.
All right.
Would you rather be a bullfrog or a butterfly?
Butterfly. I want to fly.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, to be honest. I feel like that was a pretty easy one.
Yep.
I think this is a peeve. People who talk too much at the gym when I'm waiting for equipment and then talk too much in general. I mean, yeah, if you're trying to use a piece of equipment and someone's talking, I just interrupt them. Just be like, hey, how fucking long you got?
at this point in prep me, that's why me and Tom had to change. Yeah, I had to change. We had to change facilities because it was getting to the point where like trainers were talking, clients were spending 3 hours just to do one movement. It's like they were supersetting and like whatnot with clients. It's like, man, you're not here to talk.
Yeah.
Like I had this call with a client yesterday, and he's like, he's training with a buddy, and he's like, yeah, I get caught up because I have to explain stuff to him. Then the conversation gets taken. Is a new guy, and I was like, look, you're paying me for us to get results, right? Like we're paying for this. Like we're putting together a plan, a program, execution. If working with someone is taking away from the intensity that you can have in your programming, it says that we're not maximizing our results. So if someone is struggling with coaching or training or movement, you aren't obliged to help them to the degree that it affects you on your training, especially if it's like someone who just wants to talk. Send them my way, not to make me money, but so that you can focus on your training. And I can drill him, I can rip into him, I can get him to focus, I can put programs together, whatever, put him on the same program. But it's my job then to reflect on his movements and assess him, not yours. And, then there's no excuse to talk.
Yeah.
I literally said to him, I was like, if you're going to bring it, like if someone, to me, the training environment is, I don't use the word sacred, but it's an important place to us at the intensity that we train at and what we do. So to bring someone into that environment that is yours, as James Hollinshead calls it, his sanctuary, when you bring someone into that environment, they have to respect the fact, or should be respecting the fact, that it's where we go to do things important to us. So chatting, I just said, bro, headphones, big beefy ones, like me and Tom, best mates of like 5 years, like known each other for ages. Our training conversations will be like, tilt them forward. How was that? How'd that feel? What's that like? Cool. Or like, something happened on the weekend. How's the misses? Sweet. Next set.
Yeah. Got it.
The second it's done, it's like, there's no chatting because you would just.
You're there to work. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're there for a task. Get the task done. And
as much as we love it and it's fun, you're also there to do a job.
Yeah, exactly right. I swear there is a bucket list to tick off for influencers. They all take the same route. That's my rant.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I could probably think of like 2 or 3 people that wrote this. Yeah. So there seems to be, if we look at it socially and we look at the trajectory, people that, especially now that it's like, there's already your established influencers and the ones that are trying to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
they generally follow the same pathway of how they go about it, almost to the point it's like a fucking self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you can literally play by play, ask Madden, press R2 and square, and you'll get the exact formula of whether it be a guy or a girl. I think that there's a bit of difference or fluctuation between the two, but generally you'll see the same sort of like behaviors and posts and content start to form, especially around someone who doesn't actually like, for us when we're trying to grow the business is providing a providing education, information, content. Their content is purely formed around themselves to try and grow a name of being that way, or like, get that rep or that notoriety. And it generally fits the same mold. And it's like, I've seen it happen now, at least a good, especially being in the game and on the supplement side, where we have to find these people and get them to work with us, or they work with us and find us. You literally see the trajectory just map out the exact same. It's like, you might get it done, 2 to 5,000. That's cool. But then it just stagnates because it's like, okay, how many times can you simply show a six pack, or how many times can you simply show your ass? Right. And it's like, it starts off as like someone who's never trained before, never done fitness, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, time to really focus on me after this breakup, or after this loss, and after this, it's like, focus on me. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks in, they've got a coach, now they're sharing training content, and naturally they've got a bit more robust booty, if you will, probably a bigger bust in the chest, and you'll start to see like more training shots come out.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, cool, if that's what you're into, that's your thing, but it's like a very, very similar projection of a
it's something that I've never really paid attention to or noticed, but I mean, I don't doubt it. I mean, I'm sure if I actually looked or sort of noticed, but
unfortunately, that was like a big thing with like, we had to pull up at my previous place of employment because we became in charge of the socials.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, do we really want this person? Oh, he's got 10,000 followers, or this guy's got 6,000 followers. Like, yeah, but
there's nothing of worth.
And it's nothing of worth or value.
Fair enough. After Ben's comps, are there plans to do seminars in Queensland with the both of you? Yes, at some point. We'll get there one day.
We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen. What song did you sing the lyrics wrong to for longer than you're proud to admit?
How's it go?
I haven't got one I can think of. I mean, I never any Michael Jackson song, because he makes up words. That's not fair. Like, that doesn't count. I can't think of.
Macarena for sure.
But no one knew the words to Macarena. Like, no. But so the thing is, yeah, but like that's obvious. Like, what's a song that you genuinely sang and you just honestly got the words wrong? Like, I can't think of one. You know what I mean? The top of my head.
I think the ones that I've gotten right now, I can't remember how I used to sing them. I know Shaggy on Wasn't Me used to be one.
Yeah, Shaggy's a big one.
I would just do his voice.
Yeah, Angel.
Yeah,
song.
Yeah, Angel and Wasn't Me. I would just sing his
Mr.
voice.
Bombastic.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, probably anything from Shaggy works in that aspect, to be honest. I think, was there one more in there? People using the leg extension for hip thrusts. It's the same. We've already gone through this. That's the same thing as the leg curl.
This one. Same one.
Yeah, we've been there, done that. That's all I've got on this one for now. What do you got? Anything good? Anything good?
Yes, I do actually got a few ones, I think. Let's go. Because I actually asked questions today, people. Look at me. Here's a big one, because I have known this firsthand. Male coaches sleeping with their female clients. Thoughts on that previous statement about coaches and the power imbalance?
I would be interested to know who asked that, because I got asked this question yesterday about a certain coach that does it. And it's like, apparently he claims that he's in an open relationship.
Oh, fuck.
And then has slept with like 7 or 8 clients, but the clients didn't know. Now, my thing to this was, it's very straightforward. One, we're all adults.
Yes.
So provided the person's over 18, all good. Now, if you're going to claim an open relationship, you then need to say it's an open relationship, right? And tell the people. If you've done that and they're fine with it, by all means. Now, there was the argument of like a power thing because you're a coach.
Yeah.
Easy fix. Stop paying your coach.
Yes.
So you want to keep sleeping with the person. Fine. As a coach, stop charging the client, or as the client, stop paying the coach.
Yep.
No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Like,
separate the two.
That's literally my 2 cents with it, because at the end of the day, we're adults. Like, is it wrong? Yeah. I mean, is it wrong? Like, you're an adult and you want to get laid. Like, go get fucking laid, bro. Like, go nuts. Or even same thing as if it's a female to a male. Like, go nuts, go get laid. But hey, stop charging.
Yeah.
And be open about it to the person. Doesn't have to be open on social media about it, but just open to the person about it and sorted.
Yeah. I think the issue lies, sorry, not just the issue, but there is firstly, there's like, I see two sides to it. There is the person knowing full well that they're their coach and they still try to sleep with them.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the coach who then sleeps with the client, or
Yes.
whoever instigates, vice versa, whatever. Now, again, like you said, everyone's adults. You have to understand that we're all adults and people are toy and these things happen. However, the issue lies to me when we create that sense of authority and what's the word? They're looking for not appropriation, they're looking for
Recognition.
validation and
Validation. Yeah.
validation
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing of appearance, of looks, of choices. So it creates almost like a father-like or father-daughter type relationship, which we know sexually can provoke a few things. If you talk to Freud and his school of psychology, there's underlying issues there, and it creates that sort of sense of dependence and that emotional connection where this person has a power over me. Maybe perhaps if I'm vulnerable to this person, I open myself up to these conversations. I express myself to this person. They know everything about me. They truly care about me, even though I'm paying them.
Yeah.
And they have that power above me and then there's the big thing. And this is a packed fact. This is what happens. Let's say it's a male coach. We'll do both examples. Say it's a male coach, coaches 20 females. 10 to 15 of them express the same sort of thought or interaction or desire. He starts to favor one, other get jealous. Now they want to do the same thing. Now they want to do the same thing. Now you've all got them vying to be top dog or like potential
I get it. Yeah.
that female to get them. And that's just a simple hierarchy establishment. That's just how we understand power distributions work.
Mm-hmm.
Same inversely, blokes that you look at blokes to see that top actress, model, whatever, or female coach. I don't see it as often with female to male, female coach to male client, because I don't really know many males.
There's not. Yeah, it's not as
in
common
the instance
thing.
where there's a power difference, it comes from that sense of like trying to again get that approval, get that validation, get that recognition, sexual prowess, sexual competition. Males are competitive, so there is that essence of that's present on top of the fact that in coaching we are playing in someone's emotional realm, we're playing on like their physiological realm, we're shaping them, we're robusting them. Let's say someone gets more confident because they've had a good recomp and they're starting to look sexually more desirable and they want to display that. They think your criticisms could be taken, or compliments or critiques maybe becoming more towards like, oh, he actually thinks I look good.
Yeah.
Like, to us, like we use language specifically, like, your glutes are looking much more thick or plump or round or developed, or they're coming up, body composition is changing. Someone who's seeking that validation could find that emotionally worded wrong and start to buy into something that isn't there. And then all of a sudden it becomes like that. Well, now I want to bang him because 10 of these other chicks want to bang him and I want to be the one who bangs him. And this is where both sides have to be established. The coach, 100%, like you said, we're all adults and everyone wants to get you want to get laid, cool. Stop paying or separate that entirely, because you're now paying for sex and you're paying for validation.
Exactly.
Inversely, don't go to a coach if you want to have sex with him. Or if you start to recognize that, like, hey, you know what? Establish that, like, look, I'm starting to recognize that there is more feeling here to me than there should be. I'm starting to think things that I shouldn't, or perhaps there's going to cross or blur some lines. Is there something that can happen? If so, I want to stop paying you. And you'll notice very quickly that coach was just being a coach, wasn't actually trying to sleep with you. Again, and that's not all of them. I know for a fact there are many that actually do. And they'll take advantage of that. So when you milk that dependency, there is a problem, because you're starting, and this is male or female, as the coach or the power imbalance, you're milking that to serve your benefit, knowing that person has developed a dependency emotionally on you. And the fact that we're in charge of how their physique progresses. So
exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, because then it can be seen as that you're building her up to get hotter and you want to sleep with her. Like, that's a problem. That's a red flag.
That's fair. Exactly. That's fair. I just think from I know it's a much more complex issue, and for me personally, I always try to keep everything as simple as possible. And it's like, 100%. Hey, if client wants to bang coach wants to bang client, stop paying, tell them, be open about it, like be honest about it, and go 100%. From there. And then
if it's something that's like just simply a no is enough, and that's it, there's no more feelings after that, or no more desire, like, sorry, it's shut down, still willing to work with you if you can keep it, respectable. Sweet. As soon as it crosses that line, we're out.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. You just have like the lines in place, and just like, okay, well, when it gets to a point where this should, like, it has to stop, well, then it stops. No harm, no foul, right? It's like done and dusted. Like, there's always another coach that you can get coached by.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is too, like, I think like it can't always be put on the coach as being the bad guy, because let's face it, there are a lot of jacked, attractive dudes that are coaches. There's a lot of attractive, fit females that are coaches.
Yeah.
It can't always just be that the coach is wrong when there's like desirable 20-somethings that yes, they want to get improved in health and they want to improve their physique, but they also want to bang. Like
Well, it takes two, right?
exactly right. It can't always be onus on just the one person. But yeah, when we look at the power differences, when it's milked by the coach, 100% wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
What else we got? We got one more.
One more.
One more. Shane Little asks, how many inches can I take up my peach? He dared me at the gym this morning that I wouldn't answer the question.
How many inches can you take up your peach?
Yeah. Yes. He didn't think I was going to say his name out loud. I think a good solid 7 to 8, Shane. I think you're a robust man. I think you can handle it.
Do I know Shane?
No, you won't. He's not even gonna listen, but he didn't think I was gonna answer the question.
In that case, take 10.
Yeah.
10. 10 inches.
This one, I think, okay, we've got 2 good questions. This one, I think, will be a big one for both of us because of what we do. Coaches sharing their clients who won pro cards and clearly take PEDs, then use to sell programs. Then Gen Pop think they can have that transformation in 1 year. How do we explain it? Look, like, you go.
If you're a Gen Pop client and you think that an IFBB pro card is done naturally, you're an idiot. Or you simply just don't know. Now, it's not hard to say to the coach, hey, was that person using steroids? And the coach, if the coach says no, dick. If the coach is then open and honest, like we had just said about the last question, then no harm, again, no foul, because it's not expectations for the client that is going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to look like that because this coach coached this person. Now he or she is coaching me and I'm going to look exactly like that. It's like, no, it's not how it works.
I find it like there's this weird notion that, don't get me wrong, there is a sort of association or responsibility that comes from us from knowing things. However, this weird idea that all content has to be accommodated to all people of all times to consider every single thing. I've seen people make the arguments that if you're sharing nutrition content and it's dedicated specifically to, and we know the people, like I'll tell you who it was after the call. It was like, if you're sharing like specific meal cutting ideas or like cutting strategies or whatever, you have an ownership of responsibility that you're putting out on a social platform to be considerate of people who don't understand or don't know better. I was like, well, firstly, hang on. Everyone has to take ownership in all actions in their life.
Yeah.
You as a person, and we've talked about this when finding new coaches, when finding new programs or taking PEDs, you have to take ownership for what you take in. If you look at that and you see this person who predominantly works with bodybuilders or powerlifters or strongmen or elite athletes is talking about how to weight cut, or, it could be dumb or it could be an old bro technique, but did it work? Did it get a result? Cool. If you look at that and go, oh, I'm going to try that. Looks fun. I'm going to wear a fucking sweat bag in the sauna and not eat for 3 days and cut my water out because I want to drop 10 pounds. No, that's not that coach's responsibility to tell you not to do it. This weird notion that we are now responsible for all people that see all content that we put out and we have to consider every single person, I think is misguided and takes responsibility away from the person. We don't tell people not to drink. We tell them to drink responsibly and to, when they consume, be smart about it. Why are we saying that we have to be considerate of how you consume all content? Don't get me wrong. There is a degree of ownership. Like, well, yes, you should tell it, like, based as much on evidence, research, application, but to insinuate that, we can't use the results of clients. I say they got a pro card. We got a client with a pro card. Let's say Tom gets a pro card. Now, am I going to go ahead and share him and be like, this happened in 2 weeks or this happened in 6 months?
Yeah, exactly. It's
going to be like, this is a 5-year strategy that's been going on for ages.
And
a 7-year lifespan of training.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is, in this prep phase, this is what happened. Let's do a client review. This is what we did. This is the change, the strategy we used. This got a result. He got fucking first, second, third, whatever. Now, it is not on me to say, hey, don't do any of this, or don't think that you can do this in 12 weeks or 12 months or 2 years or whatever. Like, that isn't on me to say that per se, as much as it's just to be honest about the
experience that the client went through. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And if the thing is, if you're producing multiple pro cards, like, especially if it's like IFBB, for example, good chance the coach is probably going to be enhanced as well, and probably a good chance that the coach doesn't hide the fact that it's an enhanced prep. That's kind of like known knowledge. Like, if that makes sense. Like,
it's presumed knowledge, right?
It's like, pretty obvious though. Like, you look at someone, you're like, well, they're clearly on something. Like,
I mean, it's at the point now where in 2022, I see potentially where the question is. Like, if it's sold as like, you can do this too in 12 weeks on my program.
Yeah, that, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. If it's
That's
used,
different.
yeah,
But if you're
100%.
just seeing content because like a coach is proud of his client, shared it, an awesome result,
Yeah,
you need to understand that the general population, we look at bell curves and we look at sample populations, a bodybuilding population is instantly out of the data sampling when it comes
yeah,
to Gen Pop. We
yeah.
don't compare the two. So if you're in the Gen Pop sample and
Yeah,
you're under the 64%,
and you're trying to
you
compare
can't
yourself.
then look at the bodybuilders and go, well, I can do that in 12
Yeah.
weeks because he did. No, no,
No,
no. You're not
no.
even the same sample population to even
Yeah,
make that equation or
yeah.
that equivalence.
Yeah, you
But I
got to
think
go
that is the
look at an
problem there.
F45 challenge or
Yeah,
something and be
exactly
like,
right.
check the transformations because you might have half a chance of that one.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, don't
Yeah,
get me wrong, with a rapid cut and a good controlled diet, I could probably pull down 10 kilos off you in 6 weeks. No
yeah.
stress.
Well,
Is it sustainable? No. Is it something you'll do forever? No. But to think you're going to get stage ready and you
yeah,
see this photo, oh, he must be natural. Like,
yeah,
just
exactly.
because it's not explicitly stated, it doesn't mean it's not explicitly known.
Yeah, exactly right.
Um, Last question, bit of a big one, but also we'll try and keep it short, is how to deal with getting fat after a cut. So
How to deal
this,
with getting fat after cut. And it depends on the severity of fat. Like you are going to put on body fat. It's the same thing with like a prep. It's a
yeah,
non-negotiable type scenario. So you
yeah,
need to be okay with the fat gain, depending on the type of post-cut, post-prep nutritional practice that you employ will determine how fast you put that fat on. But
yeah,
usually, if it's done properly, the fat gain wouldn't be any different in each scenario. It should be
yeah,
roughly the same. So,
yeah,
an example, if you're going to put on 3 kilos of fat slowly, or you're going to put it on more quickly, you're still going to put on 3 kilos of fat, right?
yeah,
And then
exactly.
from there, you could just have to sort of work with it. So, again, I've had this chat a lot. I'm not a fan of reverse dieting for a long period of time.
Mhm,
especially depending on the severity of the cut.
mhm.
I am much more inclined to go
Get there.
as close to get as close to maintenance as possible, as fast as
Yeah,
possible,
yeah,
purely from a health perspective.
mhm,
I
yeah,
think that's pretty straightforward.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
like person in question was more what you said is completely true.
yeah,
More so mentally flicking that switch.
yeah,
And it's a big like when we look at so we have three ways you can break down goals. That kind of as a way to break down simply process, performance, and outcome. Now we have to understand that when we're looking at whether it be this person or anyone else, like us, I've had these thoughts. I have them 100% of the time where I struggle in the off season after being extremely lean. Like even though to the point of the last cut before prep happened, COVID happened, it was like I got down to like 5.5, 6%. And that was the point for me where it was like coming back out of that and filling back up to get to this point was a very tough pill to swallow because it's like, oh, you start to eventually see the abs leave and stuff like that because you do get that validation, that response from people because we only seem to praise body recompositions in fat loss. We very rarely look at like unless we're in the bodybuilding world, there's less marketing around like, hey, I took this client from 6% body fat and 80 kilos to 95 kilos and 10% body fat. Like it doesn't happen as often, and so there's often that validation online around the recomp or the fat loss,
mm,
and so you're doing inversely to that. It makes it hard to kind of not hard, but it makes it harder to look at that and go, yeah, I'm progressing, like I'm heading in the right direction. Need to be conscious of the fact that the physical position you're in is simply a means to facilitate the goal that we're trying to achieve in conjunction with your performance and process goals. So the outcome goal is, a stage look with extra muscle mass to be bigger, to be able to get leaner later, to build up a metabolic capacity to handle more calories on in a cut phase and be able to look bigger and not have to go through absolute hell to get lean again, handle all those things. That requires a degree of building up calories, and in
yeah,
conjunction with building up calories and putting on muscle, especially naturally, is going to come with the conjunction of fat allocation that's going to
yeah.
accrue.
The other
It's just
side to that, the
inevitable.
other side to that is the amount of fat you're going to put on isn't much. You're not going to notice it, I don't think, as much. Like you'd have to
Yeah.
be very, 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 very picky
Mhm.
about um, how much. Like I guess if you feel like you look fat, because
Yeah.
once you fill back up, you're filling up like intracellular
Yeah.
like glycogen as well
You
as
look softer.
or
It's
intramuscular.
not.
Yeah, so you're doing intramuscular glycogen and triglycerides. So it's like your muscles will
Yeah.
fill up first.
Yeah.
You'll look better
Yeah.
because you'll look fuller and healthier. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to get that fat. So
And then like yeah, that side there where it's like look at the performance metrics, like look at
yeah,
the
provided you
separate.
keep training as well, right?
Yeah,
Like
separate the appearance from the performance, separate the
yeah,
emotion and the logic. Try to look at it from like all right, so this next 6 month phase, just as hard as I went on my cut phase and just as hard as I went balls to the walls with that, did fucking epic there. I now apply that same process, only the outcome is that I get bigger and more jacked.
Yeah.
And that process, then I'm able to get leaner later because I'm going to have more defined muscle tissue. I'm going to have greater muscle mass. That will lead to more metabolic capacity, increased utilization of food and substrates, all that jazz means that I can look better in the future. But at the same time, we need to this is the big problem that I find people who have, where they put appearance, and a big problem we have with bodybuilding, where people put their appearance and the end result as the only defining factor of success or happiness or enjoyment of the process. Everything we know about goal setting and positive emotional elicitation and motivation is derived from the process itself and reflecting on where you've come from and where you're going, not just when you get there. So if you're only looking at, I'll be happy when I've got a six pack, or I'll be happy when I'm 100 lean, or all those things, like I've been through all those, it doesn't work that way. Understanding that the process is inevitable, that you're going to get softer and leaner and bigger and smaller. Like you go through a cut, you wish you were bigger and fuller. You go through a growth phase, you wish you were more shredded. It's inevitably going to happen. Recognizing that it's all part of the process to get to a point. And even once you get to that point, there's going to be a new point. Like for me, it was like, I'll get to 90 kilos lean. I'm now 93. Last time I was on stage was 81. And I've never been this lean from top up. So it's never going to be, you're never going to be fully satisfied.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. And it's never going to be enough.
Welcome to the life.
Literally, welcome to bodybuilding. Like if that's something that you're concerned with, like we address it, and don't get me wrong, I will with this person, but yeah, it's definitely like you got to look at this process is never ending. I call them evergreen goals, as in the goal itself should always be expanding, because we're never really satisfied, we're never really content. That's not a bad thing, but you can't hate half the process and only enjoy the other half.
Exactly right. It's more like, Shrek. You're going to drink some magic potion and then you're going to get sexy. So just live with it. You'll be fine.
And reality is, ogres are like onions.
Exactly right.
They have layers.
They all have layers. All right. Do we have anything that we need to know about Benjamin coming out, or are we on the chill for 6 weeks?
No. So by the time this is out, it'll have already been released, and I'll be a bit of a hype for it. But any coaches out there, any clients out there who are struggling or whatever, keep an eye out for our next ebook that is going to be it would have dropped Wednesday, so it will be on the website by then. It will be available for free for download. All you have to do is just subscribe to the website and you'll pretty much get it sent to you. But it's my 5 key tips to sustain a fat loss phase. So pretty much they're bread and butter to me. But I realize in talking to a lot of people how little we actually understand psychological and physiological what happens during a cut. So having some tricks, like we can never avoid all the suffering. It's just impossible, like to try and do that, to find people actually make things worse. But to offset some of the suffering, there is ways we can mitigate some of it and have some tools and tricks to help. So yeah, Brooklyn is prettying that up, and I've just got to proofread it today, and then it should go live on the website tonight. So really, yeah, by Saturday. Again, if you've got a client going through the first cut, or you're not sure how to put someone through a cut or anything like that, and you want some tricks, it's all there it's literally free. It's just 5 tips. Yeah. Not a fucking huge book, but I think it's like 3,000 words.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there's that. That's coming.
I like it. I got nothing going on. Taking on clients, preparing my mentoring again. Usual shit. As always, getting crazy.
3 consults this week, actually. Like, it's fucking, oh shit, okay.
So yeah, when it rains, it pours in a good way.
I know, right? I'm like, fuck, okay. I'll take it.
All right, listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in. Any questions? If Ben does decide to throw up question boxes more often, please feel free to drop them in his question box, or mine, or the Bros with Brains page on a Wednesday morning. That's it from us. Oh, goodbye.
See you guys.